The Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. Don't forget you can watch the show on our YouTube channel and other social media channels. And if you miss an episode, you can always go catch us wherever you get your podcasts. Just look up the Under the Hood Show podcast. What's caught your attention in the automotive world?
I think the one thing that I've been noticing is, I think in our room, we love technology.
Mm-hmm.
We also love horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with some good old horsepower. And it looks like, we talked on shows previous, like a couple years ago, year ago, the end of the Challenger, the end of the Charger with a V8, the Hemi Jeep is going to be gone.
Yep.
It's the end of the V8 engine. GM's now investing billions of dollars in a plant to just about $1 billion to bring back the next generation of V8. Chrysler's starting to talk about, hey, we're going to put some Hemi stuff back out there again.
Mm-hmm. That was released at the NASCAR race a couple weeks ago.
Oh, and then the bigger news, I guess, when you say NASCAR, is that Mopar, Colt Chrysler, however you want to say it, coming back into the NASCAR Truck Series.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to put a truck back in the series.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty big news.
Yeah.
That kind of says that they're maybe putting a V8 in
Right.
for right now, at least.
As that COVID came in, you remember how the NASCAR, a lot of stuff was dropping off with that. We were seeing teams and things just fading, and and the stands were empty, but it's starting to come back around now.
That's like anything else. It goes through cycles. They've got just some positive vibes going right now. There's some exciting young drivers that are battling with each other. And so, but no, I'd say that was kind of what's been catching my eye, is just watching the re-evolution again of the V8 engine and a little more quietness on the EV front. I think I saw that Fisker filed for bankruptcy again. I think that's happened before, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
They were back again?
Apparently.
Yeah, they sort of came back. The ones that are you
Love
got the
their
big
scissors.
private. Yeah, you got the big private. Tesla, of course, is pretty much the dominant name that when you think of an electric car. The other one that is really big that you see a number of them as well is Rivian.
Mm-hmm.
Rivian started to make a pretty good name for themselves with it. It seems like it's holding up well. I know a few people that own them, and they have the SUV, and the truck's the one you really see, but the SUV is a nice little vehicle, and people are starting to buy those. I think it looks like the same crowd to me that buys a hybrid Maverick that buys the Rivian truck. I have a couple neighbors with the Rivian trucks that are in the age group that has the Maverick and uses it for the same. They just want something to haul around their stuff around town. They don't go very far. So I don't know. But I like that now that there's a choice. It seems like people I know that have purchased an EV in the last 6 months said, "Why'd you buy it?" "Oh, because I didn't have to."
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
They said nobody told me I had to, so that's why I decided I'd go with this one.
I'm glad I'm not an automaker that has to figure stuff out.
Constantly.
Be impossible.
Yeah, no kidding.
Hey, we're bringing this back. You did it wrong. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Montana and talk to Tracy. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Tracy, what can we do for you?
Hey, good morning. I've got a couple problems with my '05 CRV. Been chasing an intermittent gauge problem for years. I thought it was ignition switch, but what would happen was the tach and speedometer would freeze wherever they were at, usually with the temperature change during the year, and also the temperature and fuel gauges would go either, I forget if it was full up or full down. Now I'm having a gauge problem that is different. The tachometer and speedometer did a sweep all the way to the end, and then they came back to zero. They haven't moved since. That was a month ago. The temperature and fuel gauge worked normally.
It was their death cry.
You have to pick.
Probably. It needs to make it till when I retire, September 30th.
He's getting that close
Oh.
for you, Tracy, huh?
Then who cares about
25
gauges?
years.
Just ignore it.
Put your phone up there on a
Highway
little
patrol.
mount. Yeah, put the phone up on the mount and put the speed box app
There
on
you
it and
go.
just go, "Oh, there's my speed." Otherwise, I think you're going to have to get a new instrument cluster for it, which means you're going to have to program the security.
Okay.
It's too many different things causing problems at once.
that was the other question. Really, was would there have to be some programming? So let me ask you this: I do a lot of building flight controllers and stuff for RC, and I have a really high-end soldering station as well as a hot air soldering station. If I take this thing apart, do you know if you probably don't do this, but is there a common area where these fail, or should I just reflow everything? I mean, I can do surface mount and transistors and the whole works.
You could try, just check it, or get your magnifying glass out and look under it and see if you see any spots that don't look very good. I don't know that I've ever had a CRV with a bad instrument cluster in our shop, or even heard of one. They just work on those. If this was a Chevy truck or a Ford truck, I'd say, oh yeah. Some of the Toyotas, I see that, but I don't know, Honda, do we even sell instrument clusters, Shannon?
Well, I got
I'd have to
20
look.
miles of washboard every day.
Well, that's a different story too. You might have.
Your four shaker post test is a little
Right.
is real life.
Mm-hmm.
4-post shaker, I was meant to say. I think that
Yeah, you ought to see my prostate by the end of the day.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
that's just too many problems. And I'm just, you've checked all the grounds, I'm sure, just to make sure you're not getting a power delivery issue, anything like that. But it's got to be the cluster.
There's too many items.
Yeah, I'm
that
not
are
sure I know
close
where
by.
all of the grounds are at.
There, most of them on that on the left side lower dash on that, but I don't think, because they're doing different things. Plus, there's CAN bus communication up there, so I don't think that. I think it's the cluster itself is probably beat to death.
How many
All
miles
right,
you got
I'll
on
just
that thing?
Continue using my phone. 440.
Oh yeah,
Well, you want to make it with that cluster to
Yeah, for
500,000,
sure.
probably 500,000, I would think.
well, we've got 3 CRVs. One of them goes to Montana every day of the week, and it's pushing 400,000 miles, and that instrument cluster still works. They've never had an
Yeah,
instrument
I'll
cluster
tell you
problem
what,
on any of those.
I'm thinking of a way to give this thing a send-off when I do retire, and it's probably going to involve hydrogen.
I think you just black it out. You know what I mean? Just put some tape over the whole thing and use your phone. You got a couple months left. You'll be fine. Just skip it. Don't worry about it.
We're leaving Chris with the final answer on this one.
Yeah, I mean, although you did say once, Russ, you said it's easy. It was on a GM cluster. You said just pop it out. It has like 40 or 42 solder points. It's a piece of cake. I remember that specifically.
Yeah, on those, they're about 10 minutes worth of work to hit all those. They're all in one spot.
I have customers that have called us, and relatives too, that have taken mini clusters apart, and they've done that. They've just investigated them, but they also knew from the internet where, like on a GM cluster, where the problem spots were. They found YouTube videos and stuff, and they fixed them. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities if you're bored someday.
Tracy, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Happy summer. Happy final summer out on the road. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
That's all you got to do to fix it? I could have paid a guy $1,000 to do that. This is Under the Hood.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Brody. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Brody, what can we do for you?
Hi, I've got a 1997 Ford Mustang, the Cobra, and I have no AC in it. The compressor won't turn on. When I click everything on, condenser fan, like the radiator fan comes on, I get 12 volts at the compressor, but I don't get a ground or whatever you need on the other side of it. And I traced that wire back and looked at the diagrams, and it runs back to like a relay control module and then goes back to the ECM. So I was thinking it was a bad ground, but there doesn't seem to ground anywhere before it goes to those computers.
The AC compressor goes directly to ground. The positive side of the positive side of the compressor, it goes from the switch in the dash down to the high pressure switch, which is the switch. It's a cutoff switch located in that high pressure line by your condenser. And then it runs from there up to the cycling switch on the accumulator. And then from the cycling switch on the accumulator, it carries that 12 volts back to the engine computer. And if it sees 12 volts all the way to the engine computer, and you can go to the input for the cycling switch at the computer and apply 12 volts, and it'll tell it we're good. And if you're looking at a scanner, it'll say ACCS, ACP. Those are pressure switches and cycling switch. It'll say allowed or not allowed on the scanner. If it says not allowed, the compressor's not going to run, which means that somewhere in the cycling switch setup, it doesn't have power, either a broken switch, broken wire. Those cars were common to have a broken wire right at the cycling switch, about an inch from the cycling switch on the dryer. Just follow it out, pull on the wire a little bit, it'll probably break. It's super common. But once the power is applied all the way back to the computer, then it sends power out to the relay to engage the compressor. So if you pull the compressor relay out and you jump it and the compressor runs, then we know that the compressor's okay, the refrigerant's good, the system's cooling, and it's not allowed to control it. And it's going to be in that system ahead of it, which is going to be one of your cycling switches, probably that broken wire at that accumulator, because I've repaired a dozen of those at least in the last 10 years, maybe, on Fords because of that. I think it's just when they made that harness, the F-150s, the cars, and the vans, they all, I believe they used the same harness, and it was probably something to do with the machine that was making them, as it was trying to crimp the end of the wire and pull the covering off so it could crimp on a connector. It probably pulled on the wire and stretched them very thin, and then it snapped a connector on it and it worked, and then eventually it just breaks because it breaks within the rubber housing. It's not the metal itself would pull apart, but the outside would stay together. So it would just be a soft spot in there. You go, oh, there it is. But yeah, your compressor should have a ground to it, and then a power is applied from the compressor relay. So if you can jump the relay and it works, start looking at those pressure switches and the power going through them. But it's one long circuit like flashlight batteries from one switch to the next.
Okay. Can I ask you one more question? So should I be able to hook into the ground side of the compressor, like with the plug hooked up? If I back probe it, can I measure continuity to ground and I should get like 0?
Yeah, or if you take a voltmeter and stick one end of the voltmeter on the battery negative and one end on that negative of the compressor, if it reads voltage, there's no ground there. It's open. If it reads like 2 or 3 volts, it's a really weak ground. If it reads battery voltage, it's open completely. And if you ground it, the compressor should click on. But the ground for that is not very far from the compressor.
Does that help you out there, Brody?
Absolutely, yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much for the call.
When I was listening to Russ's answer, I'm thinking, my answer, I had something completely not like that.
Roll down a window.
When I think of a 30-year-old Mustang Cobra, do I think of a 97? No, I do not. I think of like a 71.
That was probably a Berkeley Classic.
totally a
We-
Berkeley
we got
Classic, except
It's an antique.
it doesn't feel like it, does it? No.
When you were
A
in that,
1997 Mustang Cobra does not feel like a 30-year-old classic automobile.
but in 1986, did a 66
Exactly.
seem like it was super old?
took me 25 years to get you to do this. This
Yeah.
is what
It's
I've
'cause
been
you're so-
saying for 20 years.
I think when you're young, if you're 17 years old, a 20-year-old car is really old to
Yeah.
you. 30-year-old car is super old. But when you're 70, a 50-year-old car is like, oh, that's not very old.
I bought that when the kids were born.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm just sitting here thinking,
Yeah.
trying to do math.
Right?
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I'm driving a 30-year-old truck now, and back when I was in high school, that would have been me driving a 1956 truck. Well, I was like, that's old.
I have
Everything's old.
I have a 1997. I have a 30-year-old Cobra Mustang. We'll plug your computer port into the
It doesn't line up in your
Doesn't
brain.
line up.
No, it doesn't.
Well,
let's-
that same port, he can go all the way back to 94 and get that same information. So it's still, even though it's an antique, it's
The
got
antiques
that-
are starting to have technology in
computer
them.
ports.
That doesn't sound right
Right.
there.
That's what I'm gonna say.
That
from now
that just hit me.
From now on,
An antique should not have a computer port.
we can only do Berkeley Classics color guesses if it's pre OBD2. Is that one 94?
There's not a rule.
Let's talk to Daryl. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Daryl, what can we do for you?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Good. I hope we don't hit a dead spot in here. I'm actually kind of driving by Garrettson right now. There's usually a dead spot on the highway here.
Well,
Yes,
let's try.
there- yes, there is.
Go ahead.
Go quick before you get around the corner.
Yep. 06 F-150. I've got 115,000 miles on it. Whenever I just give it very little gas, it just starts shaking. The whole truck just starts shaking until, we get up about another 5 miles an hour, and then it smooths out again. But just when I just give it just very little gas, if I give it a lot of gas, and we get into the passing gear, it doesn't want to do it. But just if I give it very little gas, the whole truck just starts shaking.
sounds like it's misfiring.
Yeah, I got it's an ignition miss.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
You give it a lot of gas, it's going to kick down, lower gear. It's not going to have as much torque that it needs to move the vehicle, so it'll get past that. But does the check engine light flash at all?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
You can scan it, see what it says. That's our first step. We need to scan it and see if it is misfiring, because another thing
Well,
that could do that could be a drive
tried
shaft
it,
issue.
but I've tried that, but they said if there's no check engine light on it, the scanner won't read anything.
No, you need to scan it while it's being driven. You need to read the data, not the codes.
Oh,
You read those data and see if it shows a misfire and see what's going on there. And the other thing could be a drive shaft issue, a U-joint. If a U-joint is going bad on it, it can give you a little shake too at different loads. Mine would do it just when you would accelerate from a stop, and then as soon as you get rolling, it would quit. So under light acceleration.
How much money if we were betting, if we were placing a prop bet on it, whether it's ignition or U-joint, where would you put the line on that one?
This is like a 2-to-1 for
Yeah.
ignition miss. Probably a 10-to-1 for a drive shaft issue.
Okay. All right.
What is the odds on transmission?
Oh, probably a 6-to-1.
So it's more likely than a drive shaft.
More likely than a drive shaft. But these transmissions don't fail very often.
No, they don't.
But they do.
What's the tack do when it's misfiring? Or when it's doing
Shake. shaking.
well, let me see. Let me see what.
Objection, leading the witness.
Yeah.
Are
Does
you-
it do
It
this?
doesn't really.
He's doing it
doesn't
right
really
now.
Do anything?
We can't. Hold on. We can't condone that.
No.
We can't. Daryl, good luck. We can't have him trying stuff out on the road on the radio.
What does it do when you
Pay
zipper
att-
merge?
Pay attention, Daryl. Don't
How dare you bring up zipper merge?
No kidding. Let's just all right. Go figure it out in a parking lot, Daryl. Jeez.
I just wondered. I just wondered if the tack was flaring and it was shaking. Then that would be something different. But
Good luck, Daryl. Thanks for the call.
hit that dead zone soon.
Drive. Now drive.
No
Is
dead.
there-
No, the cell phone dead zone.
There you
yeah.
go. Okay.
Can I, if in my shop, I'm gonna open a shop. Can I put like
Good luck.
a moving sidewalk on the floor so I can drive the truck at speed in the shop?
That's called a
Dino.
yes.
Does it work?
Dynamite.
Does it?
Oh yeah.
Why don't you have that?
Well, for about 50 grand, I could get
Okay.
a base one that all it does is allow me to drive it on
Right.
the floor. If I want to spend a lot more, I could get one that reads horsepower and all that good stuff. But yeah, you can.
I don't want that. I just want to be able to drive the vehicle at speed in my shop, so it's all hooked up and
I
everyone's
can't tell
safe.
you how many times that I could have used a good dyno, but the problem is a good one is going to be an all-wheel drive because so many of
Yeah.
these cars are all-wheel drive. So you have to have a front one and a rear one. You have to strap the car down,
Yeah.
and then this dyno has to adjust because cars are different lengths. But yes, I tell you what, to
Well,
do
just
that is so
just a
great.
conveyor belt.
You can with a good dyno like that and the car is strapped down, you can put it in gear, run it at 65, 70 miles an hour, and you can get underneath while it's running there and look at the drive shaft and see if it's moving and look for vibrations and check for misfire, and you don't have to go anywhere. There's not
Use a hairdryer at the front to see if the wind
Right. There's not a lot of them around, but really big cities are where you'll find at least one place that may have one, and they use it because they don't want to take a customer's car out on the road.
Right.
They'd prefer to do it in the shop, and it's even cheaper for them for insurance rates. Is we don't test drive any cars; we keep them in our building.
Yeah, I suppose there's places where you can't get to. I mean, it would take you that long to get to a road where you can open it up. I mean, where you
Yeah.
can go.
As long as they don't launch one out the front of the building, they get better insurance rates.
Right. Right. You start with better insurance rates, and then
Bob forgot to hook up the rear strap.
whoopsie. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150.
guaranteed car repair advice, or double your free back. This is Under the Hood.
866-594-4150. Don't forget, you can watch our show on our social media channels. And if you miss an episode, you can always go back and listen on our podcast. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Hoodie fan club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Phil Andrews, congratulations for everybody here under the hood and our friends over at Berkeley One Classics celebrating 50 years of collector car coverage. And Universal Technical Institute, uti.edu, the best automotive training you can find. Check them out. They've got campuses all over the country and new ones coming on for the next few years. They're dedicated to help train you. uti.edu.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Connecticut and talk to Ralph here on the Under the Hood Show. Ralph, what can we do for you?
Yeah, how you doing? I got a 2019 Kia Sorento, and it has an oil leak. It only has 52,000 miles on it. I was wondering what the outcome is going to be in long term.
Where's the oil leak coming from? Where are you seeing the oil at?
It's coming from the bottom of the oil pan. I don't know if it's the gasket or not, but it's still under warranty. And I brought it to Kia, and they're going to put some, some blueprint in it, to see where the leak is actually coming from.
You bet.
So you think that's right?
Yeah, they put that in there, and then it'll glow fluorescent under a UV light. Chris wants to try that.
Right.
And it'll show exactly where the oil's coming from. It could be coming from the sending unit on that. I don't see a lot of oil pans leaking on those, but it could be coming from the pan. So that's got one of those 10-year, 100,000-mile warranties on the powertrain. Is that why they're covering that?
Yeah, good luck with that. I mean, try to collect from Kia. That doesn't work.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
We got the extended.
Oh, okay.
No, we got the extended warranty
that covers because I was thinking because that Kia warranty, I don't believe it covers leaks. I believe it covers major powertrain failure, wear out parts. Once they've broken down, once you pass that first initial 336 or 5, whatever they've got.
Right.
But yeah, the extended warranties, sometimes they cover gaskets, sometimes they don't. So you got a good one if you got one that'll cover a gasket. But yeah, the only way they're going to find it for a warranty company to warranty a gasket, when we have a head gasket fail on one, depending on a lot of our warranties are what they call no fault. So one time they'll fix it if you cut all the radiator hoses off it and burn it up yourself. Right. But after that, you're on your own. But on the regular warranties or after a no fault head gasket leaks, they want to see a picture of the exhaust gas check we did of the radiator, that the cooling system has changed color from blue to yellow. And they also, if it's an external leak, they want us to put dye in it, pinpoint where it's dripping down the side of the head gasket at the exact spot, and take a picture of that with a camera with the UV light. So they know, all right, there it is. A lot of inspectors that come out to inspect for warranty repairs, they'll do that. They say, we want you to put dye in it before we get there and run it however long it takes until the dye starts showing up, then turn it off and let it sit. And we'll come out and let gravity take its course, and we'll see where it's leaking, and we'll decide if we're going to warranty it.
How big of an oil leak does it become? Is it like a big old stain in the driveway, or is it a drip, or what? How much are you seeing?
No, it's just a drip. But, come to find out where it was leaking from, it was leaking from the oil filter. I don't know the terminology on it. But the adapter, it was coming from the oil filter thing itself. And that's where it was leaking from. So they replaced the whole thing. But I was just wondering what's going to happen in the long term.
Nothing. Some of those it could have been warped, it could have been cracked, it could have been misaligned when it was put in. It might have been that just the act of taking it off and putting a new gasket on it or resealing it might have taken care of the problem.
Yep.
But if it was a small leak from that adapter, that's not unusual for many vehicles. And I wouldn't be worried about it one bit for the long term for that being the problem with your Kia.
Oil leaks are tricky.
I know. Hey, I got another vehicle. Could you help me on this one?
Sure.
No?
Yeah, go ahead.
I got a 2004 Suzuki XL7. It needs a right rear axle shaft. Can't find one anywhere.
Where have you tried?
Everywhere. We tried. I mean, like, there's no more Suzuki dealers no more around.
I
So,
think your best chance to find one is one of our partners is Cardash Part. It's on the internet, and you look it up, and it is basically you're looking at a collection of salvage facilities, recyclers that dismantle cars from around the country. That's a data clearinghouse where they all send inventory. It's organized by zip code. It's organized by quality checks. It's organized by lots of different things. The family that owns that just does a wonderful job of putting that together. And then they are going to just give you the link at no charge to talk to whoever has one. And you either call them or email them or chat with them, text with them, and find out what they have to sell you. And there's, like I said, no middleman. It's just you'll be dealing direct with whoever has the part. And it's going to be a used part, a quality used part. And so you want to find out what the warranty is and find out the condition and just make your deal.
Well, honestly, be honest with you, we tried all that. I know somebody in the junkyard business who owns a junkyard, like Chuck and Eddie's.
I know those guys.
Like in New Haven. Right.
I know those guys
and I
really
know
well.
somebody there. Yeah. And he's a friend of mine. So they went to all the networks, this, that, the other, still couldn't find one. The only thing I found was a place in California that comes in parts. But if they would send it here, then I would have to get the machines here.
You want the whole rear axle assembly for an 04 Suzuki XL7?
Right. Oh, well, I just need the right side, because what I did,
Right side rear
I shouldn't
axle
have done
shaft.
it. Right. Because what I did, I welded it. I welded the because the shaft is in such bad shape.
Well, that
So I actually welded the. Yeah.
an 04 Suzuki XL7, getting just the shaft might be difficult, but getting the whole rear end assembly is what you're probably
I'm just trying to think. Is that independent rear suspension or is that a solid axle?
I think it's a fallen axle.
That's a solid axle because you pull the shaft out of the housing in the back.
Yeah.
That's that little
So,
SUV.
Yeah, okay.
Right. I mean, like, the motor is still good on it, and I'm trying to save it. I mean, I got 4 vehicles.
Yeah.
Is it a V6 or a 4-cylinder?
No, it's a V6.
Yeah, I don't see
4-wheel drive.
most of these places. They're going to want to sell you the whole housing if they have it, but you should be able to find. I mean, that's a pretty rare car, even when it was being sold. 2 years after it was released, there weren't very many on the road. If you own one, you might see one now and then because you're used to driving. You're like, oh, hey, I got one of those.
Yeah.
But there just weren't very many of them out there. But they did fail pretty quickly. They cleared off the road like 10 years later. By 2014, I would say most of them were off the road from the 04. So there's a number of them out there in yards.
I typed in 2004 Suzuki XL, and Google suggested rear end kit, rear end axle. That's
That's what Google
that was
selected.
in the top 3
It's
things.
probably been from his searches out there driving the algorithm on Google.
Google said, "Is this Ralph?" Good luck, Ralph. That's a painful process when that happens, isn't it? When you're looking for a part and your vehicle's good, but they just aren't available. That can be a nightmare. And that's how this came about.
Exactly.
Cardash Part. Yeah.
no. Stay tuned, Ralph. We're going to see if we can help you.
Okay. Should I put them on hold?
Just
Or just
listen to the show.
Okay. All right. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we want to hear from you.
that's all you got to do to fix it? I could have paid a guy $1,000 to do that. This is Under the Hood.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Roger. You're on the Under the Hood show. Roger, what can we do for you?
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm hoping you can keep me from going any further down the engine oil rabbit hole here. I have a 1970 Dodge Demon, and I rebuilt a 318 engine last year. Made it into a 390 stroker, and I got flat tappet cams in there. And I've just gotten to the point now where I took out the brake-in oil. I used the driven brake-in oil, and I put in Mobil 1 performance motor oil and an additive, that ZDDP.
Good.
And then somebody put me on the path of you shouldn't put too much zinc in your motor oil. And so I started researching it a little bit. I watched some of the oil guy and some other people on YouTube and other research. I even called the cam company that I got the cam from, asked them, do you have a specification for how much zinc should be in the motor oil? And they really didn't, but they said don't use detergent with it because detergent will wash it away. Other places say their detergent won't wash it away from the surface. So at this point, I don't know if I've done the right thing, if I'm going to hurt the engine or not, or even where to go. I was thinking of a motor oil analysis, but I don't even know what I'd do with it.
Now, you could use, so if you use a product like the Justice Brothers, it's a professionally available product, but their heavy-duty vehicle is a product that's going to treat the metal, not the oil, so you don't have to worry about it washing off. And they actually, you can look on YouTube and see how the tests are done to see how this stuff works. So that what they have is they've got a metal ball that spins, and then they have another piece of metal that they jam into it with weight and apply pressure to a small point. And if that spinning ball on the motor stops, there's friction. They'll apply all sorts of different products to it, like WD-40 or any kind of lubricant, bacon grease, whatever you can think of, to that, and you can watch it where they'll put, let's say they put 100 pounds of weight on it, and with all the products you can think of, it stops. But then you put on the heavy-duty vehicle product, and it keeps spinning. That means there's no friction. It's a friction machine. So if you look up friction machine on YouTube, you'll see how this works. Certain lubricants, yes, detergent oils will wash them away, but typically you can purchase, if you can't find the ZDDP, which is part of it, the heavy-duty vehicle from Justice Brothers, you can go to about any auto parts store and get an oil additive to put in that contains zinc. And it's just the right amount for approximately 5 quarts of oil. Sometimes, you got to read the directions, but sometimes they'll say up to 5 quarts. They'll say above 5 quarts, use this many ounces per quart, things like that. Don't over-treat it. Same way with diesel fuel additives. Some people say, well, if I get increased cetane and pump protection by using 1 ounce per 10 gallons, well, I could use 2 ounces per 10 gallons. It'd be great. No, if you put too much in, just like the zinc, you over dilute it, you cause problems. You can get oil passing by the rings, or fuel in a diesel passing by into the oil. You can have all sorts of issues. So you always want to use every additive properly. If you use the product as directed, you're good. So I don't think you're going to have any problem with anything you've put in this engine as long as you're using it the way it was directed by its manufacturer. So if you went to the store and you bought something and it says zinc and it says use this 1 bottle for 5 quarts, use the 1 bottle for 5 quarts. Don't put more in there. Don't put less. Go with what they say and read it. If it says don't use it with detergent, don't. But if it'll specify, because they don't want to be, if a company sells that zinc product and they sell hundreds of thousands of these over 20, they've been out for 20, 30 years now, some of them. They wouldn't still be in business if they were selling a product that wouldn't work. So it'll say on the bottle what the directions are. They may have been updated once or twice.
Russ, would you rather use Okay, that oil and with an additive, or would you rather buy the oil with it already in there, like a driven oil or Valvoline Ultra Performance or all these different ones that have it?
To
built?
me, it doesn't. It wouldn't matter either way. If I've got one I have to change a lot, I put an additive in it. I use the Justice Brothers product in mine, like in my diesel, because I'm changing it more often. But with other vehicles that are driven hardly ever, like in my Volkswagen, I've got Joe Gibbs Racing Oil in it because it's only going to be changed once a year. It's a much more expensive product, but I'm only changing it once a year. If I was changing it all the time because I was driving it daily, I'd be
Because that's what
putting
I've been doing in
additive
my
it.
Trans Am. I was actually kind of listening to this with curiosity.
Yeah, I would.
And I change that usually once a year, sometimes every 2 years if I forget.
Then I would use the Joe Gibbs oil in there. I mean, but you'd still be fine with an additive because it doesn't wash off. Like the Justice Brothers doesn't wash off when you run it.
Well,
Does that help you out there,
this
Roger?
car, this car doesn't have an OBD.
Yeah.
for it.
Before you go, does that help you?
Yeah.
It does help me. And one other quick question is, it's a stroker engine, so the crank goes down into the oil pan just a half inch more. Does that make any difference on the oil level that I should have in that pan?
Yeah, the crank shouldn't be in the oil without a windage tray on
Well-
there, or it's going to foam it up.
Okay.
That's what the purpose of that windage tray is, because otherwise it's going to be, it's going
You'll be agitating
Like a
it.
whisk.
it's gonna whip up that oil. So if a crank is dipping into the oil, it's not a slinger system like an old Briggs and Stratton. It's if it's dropping that far in. Did you change the pan? Is that why you've got that?
No, it's a stock pan, but it's the stroker crank, which is a half inch more, I think.
You're gonna want to check and see, because I don't know what the oil level is. It may be just fine.
Yeah.
It may be where it was supposed to be, but you need to ask that crank manufacturer what they specify for a pan, because a lot of them will say use this windage tray when you switch to this stroker crank. Because we used to take, like back in the 80s, we would you're so old. We would take like a 455 Oldsmobile, and we'd stick a 501 Cadillac crankshaft in it, and then we could offset grind that crank and really make a big engine, big cubic inches. But you had to put a windage tray on from one of the Buicks. I think it was the 455 Buick. But you had to put the tray on. If you didn't put the tray on, the oil, you could start it up and run it for 5 minutes, pull the dipstick out, and it would just be foamed up from the and it wasn't good. So, yeah, find out. Call the crank manufacturer and ask them. They'll know exactly. They build it. They know. They may say, "Oh no, that's fine. It doesn't touch the oil," which is where you want it to be.
All right, hold on. Before you go anywhere, Roger, we have to guess. Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we have to guess on the color of this one.
That baby's green.
Yellow with black stripes.
Orange. I'm going to guess orange. Roger, what color is it?
Green gold.
All right.
Russ
we
is
go.
the winner.
Nice.
All right. We'll still get you a hoodie from our partners over at Berkeley One Classics, because they're celebrating 50 years of collector car insurance, and you can save yourself a ton of cash
This would be right in there.
and get better coverage. Oh, yeah, this would be a sweet one. So stay on the line. Producer Dougie over there will get you.
866-594-4150. While that was going on, I looked up Ralph's Suzuki on Car Dash Part, rear axle assembly. Dozens and dozens and
Well,
dozens.
but what we did, though, in all fairness, we did not look up the axle shaft
Right.
that he was looking for.
Right.
Because they're
look-
not going to sell you a shaft.
Many people aren't going to take them apart. It's going to be odd to have that.
Right.
We looked up the whole rear axle assembly. Now, there are some options, but with Russ's instincts, he said pick the 4x4 with ABS, even though there's a non-ABS, and that looked like that was just two-wheel drive, maybe. And then if you had an axle shaft that had a tone ring on it, you could just put that in anyway and just not, you wouldn't use the tone ring.
Use the whole assembly.
Yeah.
You'll have to use the whole assembly that way.
But just, you can, looks like there was prices anywhere from $250 to $500
Yep.
for an axle assembly, and some stuff on the East Coast not too far away from you. So instead of looking for just that shaft in this case, Russ's instincts were, let's look up a whole axle assembly.
And in some cases, you could ask one of these people, because they'll be willing, if let's say the axle's $500, the whole assembly. If you say, well, I just need the shaft, what am I going to do with the rest of it? We'll say, well, for $500, we'll pull the shaft out and send it to you. It'll be cheaper shipping for us. But if there's anything different where the whole thing might interchange as an assembly, but that axle will not fit yours by
Okay.
itself, you're in trouble. So
You're not-
get the whole thing, scrap what you don't need if
Okay.
you don't need it. But I would suggest getting the whole thing, put the whole thing in it if it's different.
I feel like too, as the consumer, I'm just the regular guy here. I feel like with all these, there were so many, you could make a little better deal.
You
No,
can.
you might be able to call one of them people
Yeah.
and say, hey, I'll give you $200, just pop the shaft out of it and send it to me.
Yeah.
Let's
if it's the exact.
verify the interchange on just the shaft.
I'm just surprised at how many there are here.
Did you double check and do just a shaft search or
No,
not?
I couldn't.
The Grand Vitara and the Grand Vitara XL7, which is what he has, their biggest problem was the engines. We had engine failures in those in the beginning. So I was thinking we did never have one of those. I was thinking the XL7.
Didn't they have a problem with the front harmonic balancer or something?
Yeah, on the engine, so the bolt would break in the crank,
Yeah.
and then or people would over tighten them. They had a revised torque for them. If you touched them, you were supposed to put a new bolt in at a but they would come off, and then it would come off. I remember we did have these in our shop, and the last one we had, it was a person from Garrettson, and the bolt was broken off, and they had taken it into the dealer, and they said, you're going to have to put an engine in it. And they said, is there anything around it? It's got 100,000 miles. And I said, the only thing we can do is weld the balancer to the front of the crank, and you'll never get it off, and the motor will be junk after. And I do not know if the seal will leak because we're going to have to heat it up to weld it.
Yeah.
And they said, well, if my
Got
other
nothing to
choice
lose.
is don't drive it. So we turned the garden hose. I took my vice grips and I clamped the garden hose close to it. So it
I
was
love hearing ingenuity here.
pouring water on the seal on the back side of it. Because like when you're welding a pipe at home, a water pipe, if there's any water in it, you can't get it hot enough to solder. So I just turned the hose on and I put a bead of weld all the way around the inside and let it run for a minute to cool it off. And they drove that thing it had no exhaust on it. So I knew every time they drive by the shop.
Was that red?
It was not really red. It was more of a pink because it was
Okay.
faded out so bad.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Utah and talk to Nick. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Nick, what can we do for you?
Hey man, how y'all doing?
Good.
Good. Hey, I've got a 2002 F350 Power Stroke, and when I was doing some repairs on it, well, let me back up. Battery went dead. Charged the batteries back up, and now the door jar light stays on. Windows roll up and down, and the door locks don't work. And when I had initially called, I mean, if you guys can help me with the problem, that'd be great. But what I was actually wondering was, if there's a scan tool that, could help me figure this out, that's, $1,000, $1,500, that you guys could recommend.
And you had me at windows roll up and down. I'm assuming you mean by themselves, right?
No, I'm sorry. So I turned the vehicle off, right?
Yep.
There's no power to the vehicle.
Sure.
And so now when the vehicle is on, the door ajar light stays on, door locks don't work, and the windows, roll up and down using the controls.
Oh,
When
they
I turn
do.
the vehicle off, yeah. So then when I turn the vehicle off, I do not have door locks still, and I can still roll the windows up and down, and the radio stays on.
Okay. So that is probably all one thing. And it's new enough, it might not show which door it is, but it's probably the driver's front door, because the driver's front door is the only door that'll deactivate the retained accessory power, which keeps the radio on when the vehicle is shut off. That's in the driver's door latch. There's separate switches on that still. And I know this because my neighbor's got a 06 F250. The alarm was going off every night, all through the night. And I went over there and we scanned it. And that was new enough. It told us which door it was. And it was the left rear door. And we just pulled the panel and unplugged both of the removable switches and left them. They're in the door. You can just head down to a auto parts store and say, I need both of the switches for the driver's front door, the door jar switch and the dome light switch or alarm. And they're quarter turn to the left, they pop out. Put them in. That should fix your problem. And a scanner, Altel sells scanners for that.
That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Hour 2's coming up.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to take your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. What's caught your attention in the automotive world? You got anything quick?
I don't know. Just what we were talking about during the break just made my head hurt, so I'm going to see what Russ has got.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, speaking of, the recall on the Ford seems to be getting bigger with the backup camera thing. Over 1 million cars now, it looks like.
Yeah.
And that was where it wouldn't.
And that's all of them. Cars, trucks, vans,
Yeah.
whatever. Just
Well, here's the thing, real quick. They made a federal mandate. They had to have a backup camera.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a thing before. It was a option that people would get. And then they eventually, that's how they had to figure it out to pay for it, to make it federal mandate. It's a good thing. But all of a sudden, you got another thing that can create a liability if it's not working.
Right.
And so when it breaks, they have to fix it because now it's a liability because you don't have the federally mandated rear view that you're supposed to have. And so that's why this is a big deal. If you had an optional backup camera, it didn't work, I don't know that they would have done the same thing.
Right. Yeah, I got you.
So
Maybe, yeah.
It's going to cost Ford and others that have had problems a lot of money over
and,
this.
and these cameras, now that we've all got them, how many people actually pay attention? In your subconscious, as you're backing up, you might see it or it might beep. The next thing they're going to have is it's going to talk to you and say, check behind you. There's something moving behind you. You already see the cross traffic alerts. You put your truck in reverse. How
Yep.
many times has it said cross traffic?
Oh, it
And you're like,
stops
"Whoa."
me.
Yeah, and
I'm backing out, and all of a sudden it stops me.
and it could be a bird or whatever is behind you. I've had a bird.
couple times it's been, thank you for stopping me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they have those and they're getting more sophisticated all the time. But if you've got like mine, I've got one of my cars just has a camera, and I'll put it in reverse. And when I'm backing up, sometimes I'll look at the camera because I'm trying, like, is this? I can't really see, and I'm trying to figure out if something's there. But if I'm in my area that I always back out of, and I just always assume nothing's ever there, I don't look at the camera.
Backing out of my driveway at 3 a.m. every morning.
Nothing's going to
When
be there,
some-
right?
yeah, it's-
Until it is.
Yeah.
You
I've
just-
literally over the years, maybe once or twice, I'm like, oh, geez. I didn't expect it,
the kid left the big wheel back there again.
My wife about ran me over with a vehicle with a camera, 07 Avalanche.
on Father's Day.
On Father's Day, with Father's Day coming up, it's
I
a memorial of her about running
Listen,
me over.
I just listened to that this morning looking for stuff on my computer. I listened to that break, and it's from 14? Or when was it? No. It was
Probably. I was working. You know what? I was working on our daughter Madison's Camry, putting airbags in it, and that was her car when she was a freshman in high school, and she graduated
18.
in 17.
17.
Or no. She graduated in 20.
Okay.
She was a COVID graduate.
Okay.
I had my kids backwards there, so that would have been
2015 or 14?
Yeah. I have not gone into that folder for 10 years. I went in this morning and heard that. That's crazy.
that I just brought that
That's
up.
really weird.
And
Yeah.
then Russ brought up a backup camera. No, I was walking behind her, and it was Father's Day. She says, "What do you want to do?"
The bottom of the
And,
box.
and I was
fell.
carrying a cardboard box with airbags in it. And right as I had earbuds in, listening to tunes, she was going to town, going to leave me in the man cave, let me work. And as I was walking behind the vehicle, the bottom fell out of the box. And I reached down to, bent over to pick up what had fallen out of the box. And as soon as I bent over, it was like, boom! I got hit right in the top of the head by the vehicle. And it, thank goodness, rolled me into the grass. And she's like, oh my gosh. And that had beepers, backup camera. She to this day claims it wasn't intentional.
Sure.
But I understand how this happens. She gets in, and when she's ready to go, she's going.
And you have to stick with that story the whole time. You can't ever.
Oh yeah. You can't change it. But
No.
the camera doesn't. The camera takes just a little bit to come up. You know, the beepers were probably beep. She probably just didn't pay attention to it. Just
because there's a car parked close, and it's
Yeah.
866-594-4150. Going to Iowa and talk to John. You're on the End of the Hood Show. John, what can we do for you?
Thanks for taking my call, guys. I appreciate it.
You bet.
97 Tacoma. About 3 years ago, I replaced the rear pinion seal because there was a small leak back there. I've got the leak back. It's really, really small. I mean, it's just a drip here and a drip there. But the question I've got for you is, does it make sense to drain that rear differential and put some fresh fluid in? Because it has never been changed. It's never been opened up other than to check it. I just want your thoughts before I dig into something and create a mountain out of a molehill here. I tend to overthink these things, and it's going on 30 years old. It's just best to let this one lay low because I'm not losing a lot, or is this something I really should get on and try to correct and either replace that seal again, which is not easy, or replace the fluid, or just leave it alone?
Well, the yoke's probably wearing. That's probably why the seal is going. If you've replaced it once and it's doing it again, it's probably got a groove in the yoke. There are some different seals you can put in there that moves the seal surface away from where the groove is. And
like an offset seal?
yeah, well, it's a seal made for a different vehicle. If you get on the Toyota forums, you'll find it. So like I have a problem with hubs in the back of my truck. You put the seal in, and when the hub turns, the seal is spinning on the grooved area of that 14-bolt shaft. Well, if you put a seal in from a 2012 or newer truck, the seal is pressed onto the shaft, into the hub, and the seal rotates within itself. It's got a nylon that so now you fixed it. Same way with that yoke on this. So if you want to fix it, you need to do the updated seal. But if not, I would say check the level, make sure it's full, and if you stick your finger in there and it's pretty clean yet, just leave it, because if you change it, you're going to wash out any dirt that may have built up on that seal area and make the leak worse. So I just keep topping it off, being that it's this old anyways.
Maybe check the vent to make sure the vent didn't get clogged.
Oh, yeah. So if you've got a clogged vent on any gearbox, it will start pushing oil out the seal. As soon as it builds up, it'll build up pressure and heat, and it'll push oil out the easier spot, which is the seal is the easiest spot to push oil by if the vent is plugged. And the vents will plug.
So if it's partially plugged, that could just be a small leak that it's pushing out.
It's amazing that like a spider can get in there.
Where do you find the vent?
Usually on
I
the
drive
top.
out.
Usually on the top of the axle housing, there'll either be a little like a loose, I don't know what you call it, like a
It's
valve.
a rubber hose.
Or
goes
else,
up.
a little valve or a hose that goes up higher somewhere. So if you get into water, it doesn't allow water to get into it. But there'll be every one of them's got a vent somewhere.
Yep.
And you can check that. And Russ, would you recommend any seal restorer in there as an additive?
No, I wouldn't. On that one, I try the vent first and make sure it's full. Don't change it. But if it's just damp, I'd just leave it. If it's dripping, then you should address it. And you can buy a yoke. They still sell yokes for those. Yokes are pretty universal to a point. They sell them. The companies that sell those sell them for people making gearboxes that need to be driven by a shaft, and they're just, this is the diameter of the seal sleeve, this is the diameter of the yoke, and there's only so many universal joints. They typically don't say, well, make one that's a little different than something else for a Toyota, a Ford, a Chevy. It's like, no, here's the universal joints you have. Pick one, stick it on there so you can come up with those things. And yokes can be anywhere from $59 to $300 or $400 in the worst case, depending on what kind of vehicle you have. But there's yokes available.
I just bought a yoke, a flange they called it, for a '68 Land Rover Series 2, brand new.
And if you don't think,
and
that
I
you
needed
can
it
get
when I got it apart, there was a nice old groove on there, and that's why it was
and
leaking.
you can put they make a thing called a speedy sleeve. You just measure with a micrometer.
They offered me that, and I said, nope, I want a flange.
The diameter of it, and you pound it on, and it covers up that groove. And so it is 100% fixable. If this 97 Tacoma is a rust-free vehicle, Is it nice? Is it super clean?
Well, I had to put the frame back together because it rusted
Right.
out. So
That wasn't unusual.
That's normal. But what about the body? Is it great shape?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, this
Okay.
thing runs like the day I bought it.
They're still worth a lot of money. Toyotas are high demand on those, even with the frame problem. People, if the frame is fixed right, they're okay with it because they know that pretty much everyone has that problem.
Is this the small Tacoma?
Yeah.
Is this the old?
I would say go ahead and I just, if it's that nice a vehicle, just fix it. Look up, see if you can buy a new flange. If the flange is available, even if it's scratch bad, it'll do that. So see if one's available. If it's a couple $100, buy that and a seal. A lot of times you can get them together. Put it in, but make sure you install it correctly. Look at the directions because there's some torque specs for the crush sleeve and all that stuff.
John, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. I just read an article about Toyota is gonna bring back a smaller truck that was the size, that smaller truck like the Tacoma was.
The Tacoma grew
when it came out. Yeah, they're gonna go for the Maverick. That sector is growing very fast.
Mini truck, going back to
Yeah.
the minis.
And they just said they can't. The only reason they haven't done it yet is because they don't have the manpower to create another vehicle at the time. They're just so busy creating different versions of their current vehicles that they can't do it yet, but they definitely are gonna. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Car feeling ill? Don't want to spread it to your wallet? Call the Motor Medics for free advice.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here. Let's talk to Joe in Texas. Joe, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hi, good morning. So I have a 2013 Ford F-150. It's got just over 277,000 miles on it. Great vehicle. I had a problem of recent where there was a rumbling sound that was coming out that would increase in volume and with the increase of the fan speed. So I figured something had fallen in there or that something had broken off inside the squirrel cage motor in there. So I replaced it with a aftermarket fan, and I lost the ability for the speed to increase with the max power on the AC. So in other words, when it's running normal, it's a certain speed max, but when you put it on max, which is just the internal air recirculating, the original fan will go at a higher speed, but it lost its ability to do that. So that was my first question. The other one was regarding a cabin filter. I don't know how to replace that. Doesn't seem to be an easy way to do it other than taking the whole thing apart, the dash and everything. Can I get some help on that?
I don't think that one has a cabin air filter. You would see it.
Oh,
when you-
doesn't?
Yeah, when you pull the blower out, you would see it up in that hole.
Most
but
any cabin air filter, if a vehicle's equipped with one,
They're easy.
They make it so that a consumer
Oh.
can replace them with a fair amount of ease.
there you go. They can be done. Some of them are a little more difficult, but they can all be done
And
without
there's-
taking a dash out.
Right. There's not any that require a bunch of bolts and screws.
So far, that's good that we haven't seen one that requires taking the dash out like a fuel pump. Oh well, we have a filter in the
Yeah.
pump in the tank. It's there, but you have to take the tank
Yeah.
out. But we have not ever seen a filter that you couldn't remove without where
Basically,
you have to take a dash out.
with your hands most of the time, or maybe one
Yeah.
tool, simple
Yep.
tool.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. So okay, so there isn't one.
No.
That's interesting. Amazon sold me one that was supposed to be for a F-13 F-150.
They
so I'm going to see what I can do.
They sell one for my older truck too, and I don't know why they list one.
It's a
when-
fitment problem in their database,
like,
probably.
just what-
Even when you pick, it says this. Make
This
sure this
fits.
is your These are parts that fit your car, and then you go to it and it says this one doesn't. Well,
Yeah.
then why did I?
I
Go,
don't-
go to a filter manufacturer's actual website where they have search mechanism
yeah.
on there and look up.
Sure.
They would be able to take care of you.
So as far as that blower speed goes, it could be a problem with the blower motor you got. It may not have the ability to go any. Let's say it takes takes 4 volts to run on low, takes 6 volts to run on
Mhm.
medium, takes 8 volts to run on high, and then that max speed takes full battery voltage. I'll just say 12 volts. If that
Right.
blower reaches its max speed at 8 volts, it's not going to matter if you put
Yeah.
more to it. You're
Okay.
you're done. So what you need to do is get a voltmeter, connect it right at the motor, and look. If it's switching, if you
Yeah.
have 4 distinct speed, voltages as you switch speeds, and they're spaced apart, they don't just go from 8 to 8.5. I mean, there's a pretty good jump, and the blower doesn't go
Yeah.
faster. It's a blower problem.
Yeah.
What you might find
Yep.
is that
Yeah.
That original blower that went bad might have backheated a
you,
circuit.
you might have damaged. I believe that one might have a fuse for the high speed, so it'll only go low, medium, high, and then that max setting. It would just
Uh-huh.
be the high setting. It wouldn't go any higher because your voltage isn't going up because either the high speed relay's out or the fuse for that high speed relay's out. But it's got a separate fuse
Well-
for that, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't make myself clear. That other motor was still blowing. The problem was a little
Noise.
piece of plastic the little piece of plastic had broken off and fallen inside, and I don't know if it fell from outside through the top of the dash or if it broke off inside the unit.
Probably one of
But
the
that was
bundles.
rolling around in there. That's what was making the noise.
Do you still have it?
But I'm almost inclined to. I still have the motor. I'm
Plug
almost
it back
inclined
in.
to put the motor back in.
Plug it in and make sure you
Yeah.
bolt it in when you turn it on because that thing will tear right out of your hands. You try to hold it with
More
one
torque
hand.
than you'd imagine.
Yeah, you turn that thing on high in one hand, it's going to move and it will cut
Then
you.
your
if
natural
it-
instinct is try to catch it, and then you're going to
don't
rip a
do
finger
that.
apart.
Don't do that. So yeah, just bolt it in and see. And if
Yeah.
the original one works, go get yourself a better one.
Or don't worry about it.
Fantastic.
You found your plastic piece.
Yeah.
It was in there.
Oh,
Don't
yeah,
worry about
take
it.
the plastic piece out.
Return the
stick it
other
back in.
one.
Yeah.
Okay, I like this. Was Joe? Thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That was a fun one to hear. That was a lot going on there.
Well,
I
and
liked
that may be an example of you buy that, value part on Amazon. You don't always get an exact
Got
match.
it from Mo Better.
Mm-hmm. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Josh in Minnesota. Josh, you're on the End of the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Just recently bought a 2001 Dodge Town and Country minivan. Wasn't the exact plan at first, but had low miles and was pretty inexpensive and no rust on it. Now I'm just kind of trying to learn what I need to do to keep that van running for a long time yet. Thinking about things like, so it's got 86,000 miles on it. And just looking at what things I should do as far as refresh items on that motor and tranny and that type of stuff.
86,000 miles on an 01.
How'd you run across that? What was it used for? Just somebody that just didn't drive it a lot?
Yeah, no, I had looked up the Carfax, and it's kind of got a unique history. It was a Florida vehicle for a while. Looked like it was a lease vehicle for a bit, and then um, came up to Minnesota for a while and was a personal vehicle. I think I am the fifth owner. A lot of the miles looked like it were put on the first like 5 or so years of its life, and then not many miles per year on the last 10 to 15 years, from what I could gather on the Carfax report.
Well, you've got a good base to start with. It's like a whole house that's got good bones. Do your maintenance and keep up with it. Oil changes, coolant flush, transmission flush is due now because of the age for sure, but it's a good time to flush that transmission to keep it on the road. They had some issues. If you can get those things done, you're doing pretty good.
We've had those vans around our shops with lots of miles on them.
Yeah,
lots of miles on them.
And if you're caring for it by doing
Now,
maintenance,
would you flush the transmission or
Yeah.
just drain and fill?
no, you flush it out.
On that particular one, that's a flush.
Yep, you hook the machine up to it,
Okay,
you
there's
completely
not a-
flush it. No
Not a
drain.
concern with wrecking the transmission from doing that?
No. The flush itself won't wreck a transmission. It's just not possible on certain transmissions like CVTs and things due to the way they pump. They're not set up to be flushed, so that's why they say don't do it. You can starve the thing for fluid because it's not flowing, but that's an old pump style transmission without a thermostat.
There we go.
Fluid goes right in and out.
That's what I was just going to make sure it didn't have some thermostatic valve or something you had to worry about. Or
Some of the new Chevy trucks we're doing, when we flush the transmissions, they're very hard to flush by that thermostat. You got to let them run forever, and then they flush a little, and then run forever again. They flush. So we recommend to the customer, hey, do you want us to bypass that thermostat, which is the number one cause of frying one of these transmissions while you're doing it? A couple $100, I can put a bypass on there, and it's done while we're flushing it. It's just an additional. They're like, oh, yeah, will that lower my temps? Yeah, it's going to greatly lower your temps for towing, and it's going to make it easy to flush every time. So take that thing out of there.
Sure.
So on yours,
And
nothing.
Nothing. Okay. I had one other question too on the oil. That's a flat tappet cam on that, correct? As far as using the zinc additive.
Yeah,
Because
you.
the 3.3 liter motor.
Yeah, 3.3. It would be a good idea to put something in there as an additive. You can put a zinc ZDP additive in there. You could use the Justice Brothers heavy duty vehicle. A lot of people say you shouldn't use. They're worried about putting zinc in their oil because they say, well, it's going to hurt my catalytic converter. Like, does your car burn oil? No. Then how does the zinc reach the converter? Because it would have to burn the oil, get by the piston into the exhaust to get to that converter. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. But if it's burning oil, of course, it's going to go right by with the oil and plug up that converter. I use that heavy-duty vehicle additive in my newer vehicle in a 21, which now it's getting old. But I use that because and that's with a roller cam because I'm trying to protect things because the metal's cheap. But yeah, in yours, you could use an additive in there. Those engines don't have a lot of problems with cams. The newer ones do.
yeah, the 3.3s in that era.
That
were,
one's pretty tough.
they were pretty bulletproof.
You might go 300,000 on this vehicle.
Josh, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Want to know what these guys are really about? Take a look under the hood.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Don't forget, you can watch the show on our YouTube channel. And if you miss an episode, you can always go back and listen to the podcast. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Hoodie Fan Club at UnderTheHoodShow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Cal Winfeld, congratulations to everybody here under the hood and our friends over at Berkeley One Classics, celebrating 50 years of collector car coverage, and Universal Technical Institute, uti.edu.
Let's go back to Utah and talk to Michael. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Michael, what can we do for you?
Yeah, I just have a 2014 Ford Explorer Sport. Well, it's a long story. It's my sister-in-law's. They, during the winter, got the cams and everything all redone with the water pump as well at a shop. I wasn't in town for that. They got that all good, and then the turbos went out. So I replaced the turbos for them. Started it up and everything, gave me a bunch of codes for the O2 sensors, replaced those and ran your guys' that CRC, guaranteed the pass, and it seemed to work really well. Then I got a misfire on cylinder 3, so I replaced the spark plugs. Still misfire after that. Then I did the Berryman B12, the intake cleaner, and tried to see if there's anything up with that, clean it out a little bit. Still misfire, and then I replaced the coil on cylinder 3. I'm not sure where to go next after that. I mean, it could be an injector or something. I just don't know where the next step would be.
Next step is going to be verify your basic mechanical stuff. We're going to check compression with a compression gauge, without it running, just crank it. And then we're going to do a leak down test where we're going to apply pressure to the cylinders with an air compressor and see what the reading is on the gauge. And we're going to check all 6 cylinders to see where they're at, see if you've got any leak down. And if you notice the one cylinder that's misfiring has more leakage than the rest, listen. That's your ear is where you're going to hear what's going on. It's it coming out the oil cap. If you remove the cap, if it is, it's going past the piston and you've got mechanical damage. If it's not going by there, you'll hear it coming out of the intake manifold where the air cleaner hooks up there. That would be an intake valve leak.
Okay.
If it's not leaking there, it's coming out the exhaust.
Okay. I forgot to mention, I did do a compression test. Funny enough, it wasn't even cylinder 3 that they all were good. Every 150 plus, but I guess it would be cylinder 4 had 115.
That's too low. 115? Yeah, that's too low.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so if you got 115 in that, the next step would be to do a leak down test, and with both the valves closed, turn it till both the valves closed on that cylinder and see where that leakage is going. If you find it's leaking past an intake valve, then you get the valve cover off. You can tap on the end of the valve a little bit. It might be carbon that's stuck in there and causing it to hang open a little bit. But if that doesn't seal it up, make sure the valve springs are good.
Did you say they just put cams in it?
Yeah. So we moved down to Texas, but then moved back. While we were gone, they didn't have anyone to do it, so they took it to a shop, and the shop did all camshaft. Or not camshaft, sorry, the phasers and timing chain and the water pump as well.
Okay. No, when you said cams, I just got a little nervous about somebody had been in there working in that valve train, what was left behind.
Yeah, and it could be a problem with the valve spring, but, and it could be a problem with the cam, too. If the cam is worn and the valve won't open all the way, it won't pull in enough air. I've seen that where they're barely opening the valve and it just can't suck enough air in there. So look at that. But find out leak down, where it's leaking from, which valve. You'll know, and that should take care of your diagnosis part of it anyways. I wouldn't think injector because you've got a physical problem where you're low on pressure.
Yeah, no, that's true. All right.
You got to get that sorted out first before you spend any more money on pieces.
Michael, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. let's take a minute here and give a shout out to the designer of the Explorer Sport, because it was just a couple of years ahead of its time. People didn't love it, but now it would be
Well, this isn't a sport track.
okay. This is just
Just a sport package on a 14 Explorer.
Okay, are you sure?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's a 14.
Yeah,
It's not
14.
When
too
was
new.
when was the
sport track stopped in?
9 or 10?
Yeah, probably somewhere in there.
Still? Let's
give it. We'll still take the shout out, but
Okay.
I just wanted to, because this is
Okay.
this one was an EcoBoost with some turbos on it, and they never did that. in
This
a
was
sport
only
track.
12 years old.
The sport
That's a
track.
long time.
The sport track was the Maverick.
Yeah.
Or
And
the
Santa Cruz.
yeah,
The Gladiator.
Aztec.
It's funny you should say that, Shannon.
No.
Look what I have on my phone.
What do you have on your phone?
Look at that picture.
That's a Buick. No, that's
It's
a little
an Encore. It's a
yeah.
Buick. What? What were you going to say?
Well, I was gonna say Chevy Trax.
It looks like a
Same vehicle.
vibe from here.
It looks like a vibe.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
I thought it was a vibe from
Yes.
here.
You're being.
I knew what it was.
Yeah.
Chris, I saw a vibe within the last week or two. It was a pretty nice one. It was weird. It looked like it had a vinyl top.
Huh.
It was blue, dark blue, like
Weird.
almost black, but the whole roof was painted white like a vinyl top. Have you ever seen one that was toned like that, Shannon?
Huh.
No.
Above the pillars, it was where the line is. The whole roof was white, and then that was it. The hood was black and everything, or dark blue, but just that top portion, and it looked like it was a factory deal.
Don't remember that.
Weird. Huh. That's ahead of its time too.
Let's give a shout out to
Yeah.
that bird chirping in the background in that last call
Yeah.
too. That made me feel pretty peaceful.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Walter. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Walter, what can we do for you?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I've noticed on some fully synthetic oil that they say that you can go 20,000 miles between oil changes. Is that something you can really do safely?
The oil itself will potentially, according to them, not break down and still provide lubrication at that many miles, while a conventional oil will break down and not have the ability to provide lubrication and protection at the same amount of miles. But you're still going to fill that engine full of dirt. The dirt's still going to be running through there. The carbon, all the stuff is still going to build sludge. It's all going to build up in the engine. I prefer to get it out of there. Yeah, I mean, you can see some pretty dirty oil that's still providing lubrication, but it's still got stuff in there. There's filters. Yeah, you change the filters, but there's always a certain amount that it's just dirty. I personally wouldn't go that far. If I've got a synthetic oil that they have high mileage and they have some that goes longer, but it's not my thing.
In theory, you could just change the filter.
And some of them say that,
But-
they've had oils in the past, some fancy ones where they said all you have to do is change the filter and top this oil off for the life of the vehicle. And you remember some of those for trucks and stuff, they did it. And those companies are not around anymore. Not with that oil. Some of them were, I think one of them was one of the big ones, but they don't do that anymore. They said, yeah, we're changing that recommendation. Just go back to
Because
change it.
you can't really change the filter in a vacuum and not have contaminants in there.
Yeah, you're still gonna there's still an amount of something that's
Yeah.
going to be in there. But I prefer now that sounds like a really good oil. If they're confident their oil's going to protect that long, then by gosh, go ahead and use it and change it a little more often.
Yeah.
If you're on the highway, now that's an oil. If I had a car and I was going to be driving it on the highway a lot of miles continuously, I would look and monitor and see what the condition of the oil looks like, and then change it. Now we have some Hondas, and we've mentioned before on the show we change the oil once a week in these things. They're getting like 6,000 miles on them. They run fully synthetic, very good oil, and they are black as coal when when they come in to be changed. They're getting dirty, and they're highway use only, no city driving.
In just a short amount of
Right.
time.
Now, we have some other vehicles that on the highway with synthetic oil, they're changed at 8 to 10,000 because they're chosen to go that far, and the oil's still coming out okay. Fair. It's still, you can still see through it a little.
Everybody's trying to stretch that oil change out to win the customer. And at the end of the day, who loses is your engine if you're not paying enough attention and in tune enough with what's going on inside your engine.
You got one chance to keep it good, and if you mix up and it eats something up one time, it's not coming back.
Walter, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Good decision making ahead for you, pal. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Guaranteed car repair advice or double your free back. This is Under the Hood.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Robert. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Robert, what can we do for you?
Hey there. I've got a 2005 Toyota Corolla. I'm having some AC issues with this car.
Well, it's the time of the year that you do not want to have AC issues in most parts of the country coming up here soon.
Right. So pretty much what's going on is it's blowing air just fine out of every single vent, but it's not hot and it's not cold. It's just whatever temperature is on the outside. Now, I've had some older cars in the past, and at first I thought I just needed to add some Freon or refrigerant or whatever you want to refer to it as. And I've got a gauge that can actually read those levels in the coolant lines. So when I plugged it in, the lines were like extremely overcharged. So I didn't really know what was causing that. And I ended up taking it down to a shop. The shops that I took it to, I told them all this, and they were like, yeah, okay. And I just kind of thought it was maybe a clog or something going on with the compressor. But I took it down there, and then they told me that it was 100% the compressor, but that it wasn't 100% certain it was just the compressor. And they said that when they ran their diagnostics, they had to completely fill it up with Freon. Now, my gauge said that it was completely overcharged with Freon. So I don't know if they're kind of scamming me out of that, because now they're trying to charge me $375 for this diagnostics because they had to pump it full of Freon that's just going to leak out.
Oh, that's a lot for a
So I'm not really sure what my next course of action would be.
Well, refrigerant, if you put in a pound or you put in 10 pounds, if it's 75 degrees outside, it's going to be 75 pounds of pressure. Can't tell if it's overcharged that way. You can if it's running, but you said you just hooked the gauges up, it's not running, you're over pressure. If you're over pressure and it's not
Well,
running, it's got air in it.
Well, when I would plug the gauge on, I made sure that my car engine was on and the AC was at full blast.
Okay.
When I put that gauge on it.
What does it say when it's turned off, though, and the gauges are on?
That I did not read.
Look at that. Because if those gauges are reading above outside temperature and the car's been sitting and let's say everything's 75 degrees and you hook the gauges up, if it says 75, you've at least got refrigerant in it. If it says 120, it's got air in it, and the air is expanding as it gets hotter. And then when you run it, it's going to make it even worse. And that's probably why they said we've got to recharge it first before we can diagnose it, which is true. That's the first thing you have to do. You have to evacuate it, get the air out of it, put it under a vacuum, get only refrigerant in it, test it, and then see, is the compressor working like it's supposed to? Are there any clogs in the system? Is the expansion valve working or not? Those can all be checked once it's running. Typically, to diagnose a system, if you bring it in and you connect the gauges and say, whoa, this is off, that's what we do. We'll connect them and I'll say, we have a problem, and now we're going to charge you to diagnose it. On a
05 Corolla.
An older car with 134 like this, it's not near as expensive as with the 1234, which could be $350 to diagnose it. So we would evacuate it, we would recharge it. At that point, you're probably going to be looking about $150 to do that, because we're going to evacuate it, recharge it, and we're going to do a leak test. If we find any leaks, we'll tell you what it'll cost to fix those leaks and go from there. If we find that the compressor does not operate after recharging it, then we say, here's what your price range could be, because the compressor has, it's turning on, but nothing's happening, which means it's broken inside. There could be metal in the system, and that gets expensive. Then you're looking at a repair that could go from $600 to $1,600, $2,000, $2,500.
Yikes.
Depending on how bad the system is. But if it just doesn't turn on, if it shows pressures on the gauges that are high, even before we evacuate it, I can turn on the switch. If there's pressure, it's going to activate. If the compressor doesn't kick on and I don't see the low side go down and the high side go up, then there's a problem electrically, and that's a different way to diagnose it. But, AC systems, they can be diagnosed. There are ways to do it. You just got to follow it. But if you have pressures that are higher than outside air temp by a great amount when the system is turned off and it hadn't been run in a while, it's all cooled and even temps like overnight, then you got air in that system. Toyota's a pretty good car.
Okay.
As far as the AC.
Because they were quoting me at like $1,200 to $1,300 to get this compressor reinstalled.
Yep, that would be
I wasn't sure if it's worth it on an older vehicle like this.
Well, it's AC is AC, and it doesn't matter if that's a any year car. As if it's got R134 refrigerant in it, an AC system, it works or it doesn't. It doesn't matter if the car's got 1 million miles or 2 miles on it. The value is, do you want to be hot or not? In the car. So it's kind of a luxury item, like a lot of other things. It's like, we'll buy a really nice stereo system for a really crappy car, but we get to take it with us when we leave, right? We can't take the AC system.
AC system stays behind.
So how bad do you want it? I would bet that if the weatherman says, "Oh, we're in El Tropico and it's going to be 105 degrees for 80 days straight this summer," $2,000 sounds like a pretty good bargain for AC. But if he says, it's going to be a cool summer, we might reach 80, 82 a few days, but it's going to be mainly in the 70s. Forget the air. I'm going to roll down a window.
Yeah. Robert, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Yeah, that's a tough one
Yeah.
There's no correct answer on that.
And I don't know what this shop did to diagnose it. If they're only evacuating it and recharging it and doing a leak test, that sounds like a high number. But now if they looked at it and said, hey, these pressures are off, let's get this refrigerant out, let's charge it up. Now we've charged it. Now the compressor's not running. Let's find out why it's not running. Now we've got some diagnosis. All of a sudden, you've got, all that takes is to go from a normal diagnosis, 1 extra hour, which is a pretty small diagnosis wise, can all of a sudden turn that
Okay.
150 to 300, pretty quick.
From my first car until after I was married, I didn't have air. I can't believe that now.
You sweated a lot, I bet.
Yeah, I still do.
Since I could fix air
Sweating.
conditioning, since I was like, I could fix air conditioning on cars when I was like 12 years old. I mean, and it was simple back then. We could walk into 7-Eleven and buy a can of
it was
R12
sitting
for
there right
79
there,
cents.
right next to the Mountain Dew.
79 cents. Yeah. So, and the recharge kit. So I had a guy give me, a mechanic friend, give me a vacuum pump when I was 15 years old. I was like, what am I going to do with this? He goes, I don't know, but I bought a new one. You can have it. So I'd be like, okay, vacuum it down, recharge it. It was like the miracle thing. So if you had a system that was together, O-rings were cheap. You could buy those old Ford piston compressors that they used on every single, they were all the same. It wasn't like a Toyota was different than a Camry. They were all the same. If it was a Cougar or it was a pickup, they had that
Just different brackets bolted on the back of them.
like the Briggs and they were interchangeable, like the Briggs and Stratton. So we'd put those on, and
Is it called an FR6?
you'd pour the oil in there, and yeah, you'd had AC. So as long as I could afford the pieces, I made it work on
I
everything.
chose not
Chris.
to. Mine were not equipped.
Oh yeah, that's
I
a
know.
different story.
I remember vehicles having the AC not work, and then going to a shop that you knew, and they hung the gauges up and got the cans out,
Mhm.
and then a little bit later you left with cold air. You're like,
why did I?
I
this
can't
is
tell
so-
you
Why did
how
I
many.
wait
It's just so easy. Why did I do this?
I can't tell you how many Nissan hardbody pickups I put AC in. I
Added
got it
to
down.
them.
I could put I could put the AC on, the dealer installed AC in like an hour and 10 minutes. It was
including charging it up and everything.
all of it. You
Yeah.
just boom, and we got good at it. They'd come and say, so they'd buy the base truck, and then when they saved up a little more money, we'd put the AC in and a radio because they didn't come with radio or AC.
I could have used that.
Yeah.
866-594-4150. Going to Minnesota. Let's talk to Pat. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Pat, what can we do for you?
I got a 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee with a 3.6 liter in it, and I'm on my 5th water pump at 150,000 miles.
That is not right.
I've owned this car I've owned this car the entire time of its life. I know when the water pump's going out, and I'm possibly on my 6th water pump now. The dealer told me, well, it's a thermostat for $471 on top of a $230 diagnostic fee. With my experience with this water pump going out, I know it's not the thermostat. I changed it on my own and flushed the coolant. No change. The car continues to warm up at idle. If I start driving, it will cool down to its normal high 180s, 190. The oil temperatures are starting to creep up once the temperature reaches above 200. And the dealership does not think it's a water pump since it's not leaking. Any advice?
Yeah, it would have to be that it's not flowing or a thermostat that is sticking shut in order to increase those temps at idle. If they've done an exhaust gas check and you don't have a head gasket out, because that many water pumps going out, you could have a head gasket issue too. But they'll
Correct.
check in.
I tested that myself last night, and I'm clean, no exhaust
Okay,
gas.
if that's good there, then the only two options you have are a thermostat sticking shut or the water pump not flowing well. If you crank the heater up on high inside with the windows open and the temp starts to drop, that is the same thing. It's telling you, okay, we can lower this temp because we're removing some of the heat from the cooling system. But the water pump, if you pull it off and the impeller blades,
Yeah, I say what's wrong? We don't have a lot of time, but what's wrong with the water pump? It's got to be. I don't think it's the water pump.
No. I mean, you could pull that pump off and look at it and see if the impeller blades are good. If they are, that leaves you with the thermostat.
Because I'm 2.5 months into this last water pump they put in. I changed the thermostat, and there's no change.
Yeah, there's something really wacky. You're gonna have to do a deeper dive in here because we have never had a water pump problem on one of these 3.6 engines.
Is there a
Ever.
hose somewhere?
Well,
that's
if the water
blocked?
pump's being replaced because of a heating issue, that's not good diagnosis.
No, and we just
Sorry
have-
about that.
We've not had one go bad. Yeah, if it's not, was it leaking or just not cooling?
The previous 5 water pumps have all cracked out and leaked.
Okay,
You know,
there we
it
go.
was very,
Gotcha.
very tellable what the problem is.
We've never had one leak, which makes me wonder if there's some kind of ground issue going on and some electrolysis because we have never had a water pump leak on one of these vehicles.
Pat, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That'll do it for hour 2 of the Under the Hood Show. Until next time, you can find us at underthehoodshow.com. Thanks for listening to the Under the Hood Show. That was good timing. Did you guys hear that?
Well,
yeah.
Very
yeah.
professional.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
And you
Thank
were nervous about it.
I was not nervous. I was
See how
aware
fast
though.
You were wondering why I was asking another question. Why was I jumping in at 58?
I wasn't worried, but I
We're
knew
right on the after show like
I
that.
knew we had it. Yeah, I knew
Boom.
we were good. We were good. Let's should we take some other calls?
We got them.
We got them. Let's go. Let's go here. Hold on. Got to push some different buttons. Let's go to Kansas and talk to Kevin. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Kevin, what can we do for you?
Hello, guys. Pleasure to talk with you.
Thanks.
Can you hear me fine?
You bet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Great. So, okay. I know Russ is probably going to shake his head at me owning this, but I have a 2018 Canyon 2.8 diesel.
I think he
But
needs a, I
anyhow,
think he needs a
know I
collar to
was
hold his
warned
neck.
that but anyhow, I know it could be very costly if something goes south with it. So what I've done is I've added an auxiliary transmission cooler, and I bought a Banks iDash, and I would like some advice on what I can best monitor. I don't have a problem right now, believe it or not. I just want to avoid it. So what can I monitor with that to help me know that I'm getting in a range that I need to avoid, temperature wise and any other thing that you might have.
Well, the problem that we've run across with these trucks isn't so much the drivability or the ability for the engine to take it. It has more to do with the control systems on the vehicle, the emission systems on the vehicle. All of that stuff is the things that they hung on that engine and controlled on that engine are just what drive people a little bit crazy.
Pumps and the glow plugs that won't come out when it's time to change them and things like that.
Yeah, the engine itself has not shown to be a problematic engine.
Yeah.
It's the vehicle as a whole, the way it's presented, is where we've run into problems where you just not a lot of ton of information and not a lot of people that want to work on them, and in some cases hard to find parts that when they need to be replaced at the time.
Understood.
But as far as it's not like where you have problems with other bigger diesels where people want to have their control board to make sure they're watching exhaust gases really close and exhaust temperatures real close and everything else. That's not so much of the issue. Is that fair, Russ?
Yes.
Yeah. How many miles are on this one?
About 83,000, so not too bad yet. But I just, as I go on, I'm probably going to be towing a bit more with it, and wanted to, online, it's hard to really tell what it's got that, I think, 6L50 transmission with X06 in it, and didn't know when heat would start breaking that fluid down.
When it gets, usually when it's above 225 degrees is when heat starts really affecting transmission fluid and that type of fluid.
And that transmission is basically the same one that they used in the gas motor trucks, and they're not hugely problematic either.
Yep.
So not that I'm telling you you're not going to have any problems in that arena and you shouldn't monitor it. What is I just don't know this. What is the tow rating on that truck that you own?
It's 7,600 pounds, or 7,550 since it's extended four-wheel drive, I think.
more than I expected.
Yep.
I mean, I would have thought that would have been like maybe 55 to 6,500 pounds, but that's more than I expected. What do you plan on pulling? What do you plan on pulling with it, Kevin?
Well, I have a travel trailer that is about, honestly, I know I'm stretching it here, but I took it and weighed it and everything, got my weights in line, and it's about 6,500 pounds.
I wouldn't do it on a regular basis. Maybe once to the state park outside of town a little bit and come back. But if you're going to be pulling it on a regular basis, I personally think you need more truck.
But the truck itself is lightweight, so it's trailers.
Yeah, I mean, that's very capable little pickup. But that just sounds like a lot of camper for that.
If it runs great, now's the time to sell it while it runs great and get a little bigger truck.
How many feet long is that
My wife
camper?
doesn't want to hear that.
Well, they'll still bring money.
How much? 26?
26 foot, yeah. Hitched to bumper, it's like 30.
I take back what I said earlier about not being concerned about the engine and stuff, but if you're going to be, I don't know. That's that's putting a lot of stress on.
People are wanting to spend. They still spend really good money to buy an 18 Canyon because it has a diesel.
Right.
They don't know any better or different. They just say, "Oh, I'll do." So you could pay good money. A 1500 series GMC 4-door truck with the tow package has a higher tow rating than that diesel truck.
By a lot.
Yeah. So you would be more room, less maintenance, less cost of repair if it happens. And I still think you could probably
Less
get
risk.
just, before you do anything, see if you did or did not want to sell this truck, see what it's selling for right now. See what they're paying on the lots. But I can tell you, if you had to put a motor in this truck, it's almost twice as much as if you had to put a motor in a 2018 gas truck.
And if you were driving down the road camping and pulling the camper and you got off into an area that
Needed a repair.
You're going to have a very hard time finding the dealership that has the skilled technician if the problem involves
It's hard enough to find a place to work on it in Sioux Falls, more or less a small town.
So if all of a sudden it was getting a shutdown because of a DEF code or these sort of things,
They're not gonna work on
You
it.
could find yourself in a tough spot.
Kevin, good luck. Thanks very much for the call.
We didn't make him very happy, I don't think.
You gave him some food for thought.
Or maybe we did. Maybe his wife likes the truck and he's we don't know the whole dynamic.
Well, it
there.
is a cool truck to
good
drive.
point. Yeah, maybe he's like, we gotta get rid of it.
He's gonna have to work through that.
Kevin, good luck. Thanks very much for the call. All right, that's gonna do it for the after show. Thanks everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that stuff.
Put some action on our page there.
Give us some action.
Yeah, we just want action.
Just action. Let's go.
Just signs of life.
Thanks everybody.